Resilience Reset. It's Allison Graham here, and today we're going to talk about improving your mental health. Now, this is an important conversation, and I just want to thank Corey, who's one of our frequent viewers and listeners of the show, for the idea. And so this is dedicated to him and his questions about how do you improve your mental health. So I've got lots of ideas on this because I think all of the work that I do, the resilience work, the perspective, the self-awareness, is all about creating a better, less stressful way to live your life. And stress is such a huge contributing factor to your ongoing mental health and as well as your physical health, as we have heard, time and time again. And so these are some ideas. Now, I know typically when people talk about mental health, they talk about, what I often call the critical six. So being optimistic, breathing, meditating, like all of the stress management techniques that we know we need to do. Well, I think that's great. And yes, you need to breathe, you need to meditate, you need to exercise, you need to do all of those things. And if you're struggling in any way with your mental health, you may not feel like doing any of those. It might be a lot harder to get into the groove to do those important tasks. And so my work is very much before that. It's the perspective, it's the thinking, it's the how do I get myself into a space where I have enough capacity left over to feel, to be, to do, to exist, so that I can do all those things that I know that are really important for me, like eating well, exercising, breathing, taking time, self-care, etc. Hello, Greg, who is watching us on LinkedIn today, because I can tell because you've got the little thing there. So awesome to see you here as well. And let's dive into these thoughts that I have. And I just want to double check to be sure that we're online. I know we're obviously on live there, and sometimes Facebook is not working. So people are saying, hey, Allie, why are you not always on Facebook? Well, because technology is only as reliable as technology is. And sometimes the APIs, they get all messed up. That's why, I guess. Anyway, I'm good. I'm live there too. So, all right. It is a very important topic today. Thank you, Greg. And for as much as I always have a smile on my face, I got to tell you, like, I have definitely had times in my life where I have struggled with my mental health and really, really just had some very, very difficult times. And I was very fortunate because when I had my surgery and things went wrong and I ended up with neuropathic damage, I ended up getting into a program at the hospital for traumatically acquired pain patients. And I had the blessing of having a cognitive behavioral therapist for the better part of 8 years, who I saw for 2 to 3 weeks, every 2 to 3 weeks. And he and I worked through so much of this material that I'll probably share with you, or it's not even that the stuff that we did is exactly what I share. It shaped my thinking so that I could come out the other side. And that's what I hope why a lot of my work maybe sounds a little different than what you're used to hearing. I kind of hope it does, because it's through the lens of my own particular experience. Now let me see, Dan is offered here. At one agency, we used to ask open-ended questions like, what is mental health? Everyone has a different answer. And you know what a great starting point. What a great question, Dan, because I think you're absolutely right. What is mental health? And I don't even know if I have a really great answer. I think the way I look at mental health is that we're going through our day and we're actually okay. So when I have not had good mental health, I have been very hard on myself, felt depressed, didn't have any energy to do anything, just really found it difficult to be optimistic, to have hope. I think, in negative mental health is like the absence of hope, the absence of joy. And I think one of the big things for me was understanding that happiness every day isn't the goal. So good mental health does not equal happy. the happy is one emotion that, we want to feel as often as we possibly can, of course, but we also need to be able to have sadness and feel our emotions on either end of the spectrum. In order to feel true joy, we need to be able to embrace despair. And so I don't believe that good mental health is the absence of any of those negative or, lower emotions. I think it's feeling okay and confident and optimistic and hopeful for the future or for this very present moment in the midst of that variance in emotion. Okay, so that's my thinking around what good mental health is. It's this confidence and this, like, I got this, and I have a little get up and go, and I'm not hard on myself, and I'm not beating myself up, and I see things as they are. Like, there's just so many pieces of the puzzle that go into it. Now, I think it's really important, before I get into a lot of the ideas that I have, to make a very important distinction. You need to look at your mental health to decide, is this a medical issue or a situational issue? Because if it's medical and you need some sort of an antidepressant or some vitamins or something that's going to help you kind of get your mojo back and everything firing on the right, so I'm going to encourage you to take that step, be proactive about your own healthcare journey, go to your doctor, get what you need. And if you're on medication, it's not working, go get different medication. Talk with your healthcare professional, and with zero shame. I'm working with some friends right now who are, really struggling with their mental health, and they've had to use some pharmaceutical aids. And they have such a shame about it and such a embarrassment, and like, I failed and I should be able to just be happy. And I'm like, you know what? If you need the medical help, go get it. Right? Like, we're way past in our society, I think, this judgment that that's actually a bad thing. Okay. But if that's not on your radar and it's just situational and you're feeling in a funk and you want to get up and go and turn things around, then that's what my chat here is going to be about. Corey, here you are. This is it. But kind of gray and wet out. I just got off the phone. Yeah. Oh, so I'm glad you got the notification, because you did get the show, and I'm glad you're here live because you can add to the conversation and ask questions as well. So first piece, situational or medical. Now, so many pieces and places we want to go here. I think when I've been the lowest in my life, I think that perspective is the first place we want to change, or we want to start. Because as we get and sink into into a negative mental health state, there's a tendency to be looking at the minutia of what's in front of us. So this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, right? And it's really easy to get drawn into the pessimism, into the drama, potentially, if you're in relationships with others, to focus on the lack of what's in the moment. And so one way that in the past I've been able to pull out, if I've been having a challenge with this, is to look at the bigger, broader picture. Come back to my big vision for what my life is for, looking for some hope, like always trying to find that hope. Like, well, what if this happens? And, really starting to focus on those really good ideas. And if you saw the show about the internal messenger of bullshit, then that's our internal voice, that critic who's generally very negative. And so one way to release that cycle of negativity is to threes. And what I mean by that is, so if you start looping into a negative conversation in your head and it's piling on and it's making your mood go deeper and like uglier and just not working, then I'm going to challenge you to say, okay, that's the negative storyline. I'm going to create two more storylines to add into the mix. The first is an absolutely unicorns, rainbows, magic fairy dust, like I'm going to win the lottery, whatever, level good news. alternative. And the other storyline is something that's middle of the road that would be acceptable and quite frankly plausible. Okay. So if you're looping on the negative, we want to interrupt the cycle by going really extreme positive and then something right in the middle that is more neutral or leaning towards the positive. And so when we do that, what happens is, at least I found this to be the case, is that we can release the negative looping. Because the negative looping of storylines, it like loops, it's more like the vortex. You get sucked into the rabbit hole, right? So negative line, hook onto it. Oh, it makes me feel, and then, go to the next one, and then makes me feel worse, and then keep going on the same storyline, and then you're going down and down and down and down, and it starts to pull us out. So what I'm trying to do is get you like out of that circle looping and streaming all the way down and like pull you up here. Because then your brain's like, oh, wait a second, I kind of jumbled. Like there could be other alternatives. Okay. So that is one way to shift the thing. Corey is asked, the negativity can be true though, but trying to add some positivity is so powerful. How did I not think of that? Sometimes there is an alternative. So here's the thing. You didn't think of it because you didn't need to have a conversation about it till today. That's all right. And that's why I do this, to hopefully give you new ideas and fresh concepts. I believe in silver lining thinking. And what I mean by that is, in every moment of despair, there can be, although it may be awful, a blessing, an outcome, a good experience. For example, I lost my dad. When I lost my dad, he died. It was awful, gut-wrenching. He was my best friend. He was everything a father should be. I was so incredibly blessed. And because I lost my dad, I'm not happy I lost my dad, obviously. That's gut-wrenching. The blessings that came out of that was a renewed and deepened relationship with my mom, who we always had an awesome relationship too, but it was just, it shifted. And I'm so incredibly grateful and blessed for all the years that I've got to spend with my mom. Without my dad, like, I know that's maybe seems really hard, but I'm just telling you like the most extreme examples. Like when I had that horrific surgery and, I used to say, the doctor butchered me and all of these things. I don't have that level of anger about the surgery anymore, because I recognize that in that worst time physically, the blessing that came out of it was an entire body of work. 2 books at this point, 3 online courses, thousands of audience members, hopefully one day millions. I want to speak 100 times next year. Okay. From September to September, I want to speak 100 conferences, or for 100 personal development days for companies. And that would never have happened if that horrible thing didn't happen. And so, Corey, I'm going to challenge you. Just because something seems despair, we can get in the habit of optimism. We can get in the habit of finding something good that comes out of it. People have been doing with us with COVID in such a really great way, right? Like it's, people are saying like, it's awful. I lost my job there, but then I created a freelancing company and now I'm doing what I absolutely love. Or I, had to go part-time at the office and we couldn't go into work, and now I don't have to commute and I get to spend time with my family. People in my industry, many of them only earn their living, and really great livings, by the way, for many of them, being on an airplane and speaking in front of audiences of 1,000 or 2,000 people, right? Getting paid tens and tens of thousands of dollars to show up for 45 minutes and then fly home, right? Well, that sucks because their lives were, pulled out. Like, I mean, they've got it pretty good, most of them, but the blessing was, so they no longer get to do what they'd worked 25 years to get to do, but now they're home with their family and learning all new technology, right? And serving remotely and not having to be on an airplane. Like there's always something good. So this idea around silver lining thinking, interrupting the really negative conversation that's looping, and just play with it. right? Play with it. Maybe, well, at least I think I was talking about that the other day about, and Sarah said, well, I love my big toe, That's a great line. If you didn't see that, go back to that one. So as we talk about improving our mental health, that storyline in our mind is critical. The perspective is also huge. And so one of the things we can do, if you think there are 3 different levels of perspective, there's the past, there's the current, the present, and the future. And so often when people talk about mental health, they actually say, like, when you're looking back, that's when you get depressed. Like regret, longing for something that no longer is available. If you've heard me speak, I believe that we cannot bounce back. And so when we stay rooted in the back, that can be really detrimental to our mental health. However, I think there's a blessing and a perspective shift available to help our mental health when we look at the past, the present, and the future. And here's how. So the past, I want you, when you're not feeling great, to look at the wins of the past, the moments when you've been in your element, the people who you've met, the great conversations you've had, the laughs, the good times. Look back on the memories of the pictures in your, iPhone or Android, or if you're like me and still, have my old school, memory books with the, printed out pictures from high school and stuff. Like actually going back and finding the moments of joy to remind you that the moment you're in right now where you're feeling is just a moment in time. Because you can see those moments of joy. So let's say, one year over this year and you're looking at 2 different pictures and they both had joy. I'm going to guess, if you're someone who has trouble with mental health, that in between those moments of joy, there were some dips that weren't fantastic. And so what I started to release in my own mind was this expectation that it always had to be great. And looking back, I can see, oh, that was great. And that was great. Oh, but wait, wasn't there something that was sort of in the middle? And so allowing this bit more of a release and an okayness as it comes to the different emotions and looking back can help give us more hope for the future. All right. I'm looking, there's so much great stuff here. But soon you're looking back, grief. Yeah. Corey's saying, looking back, grief, struggle, and feeling deserve better, though, as counting as though you say I would. Yeah, exactly. I always love how you engage with the comments and life. 3 other viewers, I hope they will see this video. But yeah, I think I received answers both in your help and your words while sitting here. Oh, that's fantastic. And you know what? I hope one day we're going to have more than 3 viewers on Facebook and 10 on LinkedIn and 3 over on YouTube. It doesn't matter to me though, because if I'm helping one person, I'm helping one person. But you know what? If you find this helpful, tell other people about it, share it. I'm so grateful to everybody who does do the sharing. So, you know what? We'll build the community, but right now I'm just serving whoever does show up, and the right people will show up. So that keeps me going. Okay. All right. So I think that's important. And then the hope for the future. So thinking the bigger vision is like, because I think our mental health is better when we're working towards something, right? When we're striving. And actually, if we don't have growth in our life, like if we're not growing towards something, our mental health will suffer. And I know that about myself. And so that's why I'm constantly pushing myself to grow, because then I feel like I'm working towards something. Okay. Okay. What is Dan saying here? John Gray wrote, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. He said, those with low mood have no joy. Tony Robbins said, those who have experienced tragic events need projects to work on outside of themselves because they are fixated on themselves and, oh, it goes too long, and their problems. Yeah, 2 people who I absolutely love, by the way. Great. John Gray, awesome book. And Tony Robbins, one of my huge heroes. And as a matter of fact, as you mentioned his name, Dan, he's the one who talks about how growth is so critically important to our mental health, right? So definitely looking at that. So if your mental health is struggling, you may want to be thinking, am I growing? Am I aiming for anything right now? And if we don't have something to aim towards, it's kind of hard to like get up and go. Something else I think is so critical to our mental health is we need a sense of newness. If our lives are just like same day in, day out, nothing new, no new interactions, no new hobby, no new stretch goals, no brain power and thinking, we're actually at a greater risk for a problem with our mental health. So I remember at Christmas time, it was really slow. I think we were back on lockdown or on our way to lockdown. It was just, I was out at the lake, and, at the lake in the winter is pretty desolate, although I actually kind of like that. And but like work was slow, and December generally is, as you can imagine, for a speaker. And so I was really low. I was like, I just am not feeling good. Right. And what worked for me was I found this beautiful little platform called Clubhouse. And I went on Clubhouse and I just got lost in conversation, and it just energized me. Not because it was like a Band-Aid in any way. It was legitimately energizing. But what I realized when I looked back at that was that for all of COVID, I hadn't really met anybody. Well, I had met new people actually through different networking groups, but I hadn't had any new feeling or new sensation of something, right? Or they were fewer and farther between. And what I realized was I missed like meeting people in airports, and missed going to conferences and talking to people when I got off of the stage after speaking and all of that. And so I needed that little juju, right? That newness. So I learned that platform, and ironically now I'm not on it at all, but because I'm really more onto the LinkedIn. But it was such a blessing, and I've met some incredible connections from across the world because of that. And even more recently, I chose to join karate, Kenpo karate, and I am learning a new skill. Can you believe it? I am learning a new skill of karate. And let me tell you, that's not easy. It's a lot of brain power. It's the physical coordination, etc. But it's getting the brain into gear. So it actually is something to do other than sit and wallow and feel sorry for yourself and not feel like you're having something to do. Okay. So I don't know where we're time. We're probably close to time, but I've got lots of other ideas. Greg took a phone call. That's all right. I find that perspective is the first thing to go, and yet it's the one thing we need to find peace in the big picture. It's so true. Yeah. And you can always watch the replay, but I know you got a business to run. So, you've job to do, and that's fine. These are optional, Okay. So we're looking back for wins and perspective. We're looking forward for growth and hope and opportunity, and just making it up. The truth is, everything we're talking about in our lives, like our perspective, is made up anyway. So why not make up a good story? Why not make up the hope that things are going to actually work out the way they should? Okay, so that can help. Looking at that bigger picture. And then the next piece here is we've got to get you some momentum, because as I was already talking about the spiraling, let's look at, like, if you're going along and you're just like, it's the not Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's the motion. Things in motion stay in motion, right? I think it's Newton's law of motion. Yeah. Let's be honest. I should not be quoting anything scientific, but you know what I'm talking about. An object at rest will stay at rest unless there is some sort of a force to make it go. And an object in motion will stay in motion unless something stops it. And so we got to think about that with our mental health as well. And so if we're like going along, and I'm going to use the image of, like, hanging out on the couch, watching Netflix, not feeling good about things, really just not in the groove, right? Then we need to figure out, how do we get you momentum? And the easiest way I found to get momentum is 5-minute chunks. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to run around the house, and then I'm going to come back in. That's it. Like, don't even put on shoes, wear your bare feet. Doesn't matter. Or I'm going to send one email that's going to help somebody. Or I'm going to do one phone call or one positive text, or I'm going to write for 2 minutes in my journal. Do something that can get that motion going to give you momentum and to make you feel like you've got a win. That to me has always been really helpful in improving the mental health. And the one thing we haven't talked about, and I'm going to just play with this for 2 more minutes, and then we'll call it a day, is, unless there are questions or comments that you want me to cover, is I said about the looking back and looking forward. Let's talk about being in the moment. And there is such peace we had when you become okay with what is. Just what is. And if you're feeling sad, what if that just is, and that's okay? What if you just felt the sadness? Because emotions are energy in motion, right? And so if we're not comfortable with the negative stuff, and we're pushing it down and we're trying to escape it, and we're not embracing it, and we're not like feeling it, then it can get stuck. And that's gonna long-term be a problem for your emotional health, your mental health, and your physical health. And so what if in this moment, if you're feeling a bit depressed or in a bit of a funk, you just went, yeah, look at me in a funk. And I see this word coming out of my corner of my eye. Dan nails it. Acceptance. Accepting what is, and not trying to force it, not trying to change it. Just be compassionately curious about what you're feeling. I listen to Kyle Cease a lot. I think I've mentioned that in different times. And I am particularly interested in his philosophy, and I definitely have found a lot of help through it. And he's all about the present moment. But what he said in a video recently, which I thought was so clever, is that laziness is rest with judgment. And you know my story. I've talked about how I used to think I was so lazy because I was in so much pain I couldn't do anything. And then I would be on the couch recovering and hating myself for it. And then I was just angry, and then bitter, and then frustrated and depressed, and all of those different things. So like when I'm talking about bringing yourself out of that negative mental health space, like I've been there too. Like I've felt it. And I just, that judgment was so, like, I think the hardest thing to overcome. And then even like going as far as judging yourself for being depressed, or like none of it helps, right? Like, what if it just is? What if today I'm just, I need to have a little nap, or take care of myself, or do something to increase the energy? Because see, the whole point of my work and my whole framework around tasks, obstacles, and adversity, and the difference between those and what we do in the face of each of those. Okay. So go on to other videos and look at that. But the whole point is so that we can free up, stop needlessly allowing misplaced emotion, negative storyline, and barriers to performance like worry and judgment and not saying no and not setting boundaries and not having self-care and all of that. We can't have those stealing our daily capacity to take care of what matters most, our physical health, our mental health, and our emotional health, and the relationships in our lives. And so that's what we really want to do, right? We want to figure out, how do we alleviate some of this guilt for not feeling like being at our absolute best. And I will close with this. Yeah. Sometimes you just have no choice but to be okay. Be okay. And like, I've just gotten to the point where when something goes wrong, I've just chosen to believe that down the road, it's going to be worth it. I'm going to be saved from something, or a new opportunity is going to happen, or, or I don't know. And you know what? Maybe it's not always like that, but isn't it easier to go through life thinking it is? Because again, we just make up our own stories. Yeah. Here's where I'm going to close. If you have struggled in any way with your mental health at any point in your life, but specifically with the last 18, 19, 20 months, as it relates to COVID, you're not alone. We all have. I teach this stuff. I practice this stuff. I live this stuff, and I still need to take my own advice. Right? Like, for sure, not every day is fantastic. And, my hope is that through the work I do, the downtimes are shorter. And that's where I feel very blessed right now with how I've been able to manage through this and do this stuff, is because I'm not getting into a funk for as long. Okay. And that's what I'm hoping for you. But if you are struggling in any way, please get help if you need it. We talked at the very beginning about medical versus situational funks and your mental health. Okay. So if you need medical help, please go get it, and with no shame and total encouragement. And know that, there are many people out there who are supportive. So if ever you need help, reach out to help. Don't suffer alone. There are supports in place. There are things you can do if you're in a crisis situation, for sure. And of course, I'm always acceptable. I would never want somebody to be in crisis if they had no one to call or whatever, I'll throw that out. I can be a resource, but there is a way out. There is always hope. And you're going to need to take action in order to choose to not stay on the exact same path. You need to make a choice to force that momentum. And that is all, each and every one of us, we can only do it. There's no outside source that can make us feel great about our mental health. There's no outside source that is the answer. We need to do the right activities, take care of ourselves. And it could be as simple as taking some extra vitamins. One of my best friends and I, we used to joke, if one of us was feeling kind of, run down a little, or kind of complaining and like, one of us would joke and say, have you had any vitamin B lately? And vitamin B as in Bob, because it can help. Like, it could be something simple like that, right? Like, to just give you that get up and go, and then go do all the other things. Oh my gosh, this is a long resilience reset. But as we determined at the very beginning, an exceptionally important conversation. And thank you for listening. And please share this out if you feel it's really helpful. I would love to build out the platform and reach even more people. And in the meantime, I'm very grateful to be serving you. So to your mental health. And until next time, may you stress less, do more, and be happier. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.